Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the decision of whether you should be going trade or self-found on last Epoch's 1.0 release. So before we go into the nitty-gritty, kind of the theory crafting of how this might play out, I have to quickly talk about how last Epoch actually wants its trading and self-found economy to work. So usually ARPGs have a pretty hard decision to make. Do they want an auction house? Do they want trading more like in Path of Exile? Do they want no trading at all? And there was actually a time where last Epoch said, we don't want trading, we don't want an auction house, we just want this raw experience. But then they came up with a pretty genius idea that they basically said, we're going to support whatever you want to play. And out of that came probably one of the most revolutionary ideas I've ever seen in an RPG when it comes to solving that issue. Now, the way this is going to work is there's going to be two different item factions. One is going to be for self-found, so you cannot trade with other people, and the other is going to be for trade. Now, if we, for example, take Path of Exile, the way solo self-found works is very much like opting into hardcore. You basically take a hit. It's a downside. But you say, I can overcome this downside, and therefore I'm going to go hardcore, and I'm also going to go solo self-found. Last Epoch's approach, on the other hand, is we want you to play either or, and if you make the decision of not trading with people, we want to give you a trade-off for that in more item drops. Now, if you, for example, look at the rank rewards of the Circle of Fortune, you can see the first rank reward is you have 35% chance to double your loot from an enemy. Same thing with Rune of Ascendance at rank 2, which are the runes that you use to gamble for unique items. You have a 45% chance to be able to use it again. You have idle drop chance, you have exalted affix drop chance. These get crazier and crazier the higher you go. Whereas its counterpart will basically just allow you to over time unlock all the trading market and be able to trade everything with other people. Now, just so you know, this decision is not final. You can change at any point in time. However, it's not like you can go to the self-found mode, to the Circle of Fortune, get a drop bonus and just farm up and then put all of that on trade later. It's not how it works. They're actually bound to their guild. So if you want to change, you will have to have different item sets. You can't just jump into trade and buy stuff for gold, because gold you will still have. So you will be able to buy adequate items, and then you farm up gold and you will get your own, I don't know, set in that. But usually people will opt into one or the other. Let's go into the Merchants Guild first, which is the trade faction. The first thing I want to point out is there was just a post on Reddit. So what we thought would happen is, in order to trade something, let's for example say trade idols, which is rank 4. Both you and the other person would have to be in rank 4, which is a pretty big deal, especially if you go higher up, because you cannot really say how many people are going to be there, especially if you're somebody who already played a lot, right? Because 99% of people are new to the game at launch, so it will take them a lot of time to accumulate that knowledge. But good thing right here is that actually if you're selling an item, you don't have to be that rank, only if you're buying. So if you know what you're doing, if you're prepared, you're gonna have a really easy time to actually get your key unique items in trade, because it isn't that hard. Most of them are not that hard to achieve. The hard part is getting LP on it, and that's more for later and for min-maxing. And that is especially true for builds that need specific items, and that's not just uniques, that's also idols. Idols have the same effect, for example, if you're playing Smite. But where is the problem here? Well, the more people play something, the more expensive the items will get. And I know this as a Path of Exile player and a content creator. Usually the builds I put out go up in price, and I can't really do much about it. There's obviously flippers. I don't know if that's going to be an issue in last Epoch. We'll have to see if there's like a certain limitations or whatever. But if a lot of people play it, the same items will be bought up, and yeah, you're gonna be left on the wayside. If you play off meta, that might be an upside, but you cannot forget that people might actually not even list the items that you want. Not everybody is gonna list everything, so they might just have it sitting in their stash or never even pick it up. So that's a problem. Another big upside about trade might be that you actually have more hype drops. This obviously completely depends on how you play the game, but no matter what item you drop, you will, if it is a good item, you will be able to sell it. Whereas on self-found, you might not be interested in ever making a build with that item, and then it's just lying around doing nothing. A big downside that I personally see is that in endgame, trade might just evolve into the same farm that everybody has to do, or you're inefficient. The whole market will revolve around that one gold farm that if you don't do, you're just leaving money on the table. In self-found, you can target farm your items, and depending on what items you need at that time, you will change your farm up, right? You will go dungeons. Oh, today is exalted helmets. Let's go farm dungeons all day. Tomorrow it's back to monos. Oh, I need that boss drop and stuff like that. In trade, it might just be exactly like in PoE. You farm the most efficient thing over and over and over. Now then, let's talk about self-found. So self-found is not reliant on other people and them knowing what you want or knowing what's good. which can be huge on a release. Once again, the economy and the game is completely fresh. A lot of people, probably 99% plus, are going in completely blind or just knowing a few YouTube videos, and maybe you have already played a lot and you now only have to rely on yourself, which can be a big deal. However, in mid-game, while you have to find your key items, even with all those drop chance increases, you're going to have a problem to find your key items, unless those key items are boss drops, because then you can just target farm them. However, once again, if you're playing a meta build, you might be better off in self-found. Obviously, it's hard to know, but if you kind of know what's going on, what Maxwell puts out, what YouTubers put out, then you can kind of dance around that. Other than that, I will just say, and we're going to go over the rewards in a second, the amount of multiplicative stuff you're getting is completely outrageous. Obviously, until you get to mid-end game, you won't have all of these buffs, but once they get going, they really get going. 35% more items, 45% chance to keep your Rune of Ascendance, 25% more idols, 50% more likely that an affix is exalted, 35% double rewards in monos, and these rewards are all multiplicative with each other. Then we have twice as much chance to get LP, twice as many tier 7 affixes. Once again, multiplicative. This one here is probably the most busted. I don't know if 25% chance whenever you drop a rare, which happens all the time, for it to become an exalted. Now, obviously, most of them are still going to be trash, but now you're hitting that exalted. You're probably hitting double as many exalted as you did before, maybe even more. Number 9 is a little bit goofy, right? Whenever you drop a set, you drop the whole set. Okay, cool. I guess it's maybe good once, but other than that, pretty useless. And then items from prophecies are duplicated. And we haven't even talked about prophecies, which are basically these things you can buy for favor. It says, for example, kill X boss, you get 8 specific idols, or you get 6 unique staffs or whatever. There's just so many extra rewards here that entice you to go self-found. However, once again, until you get those ranked up in mid-game, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle, so you want to pick builds that are a little bit more flexible. If your build cannot work without these 2 uniques that are not boss farmable, you're gonna have a problem. These ranks go up like crazy. The difference between rank 6 and rank 10 is probably gonna be ×4 loot. With that said, in end game, you're gonna drop so many items, especially exalted items, that you're gonna have to put more time into min-maxing your filter than actually min-maxing your build. It's going to rain. You're probably not even gonna show tier 6s anymore. You'll be dropping double tier 7s like you have never seen before. This even gets crazier in groups, because in groups you can still trade with each other if you have resonance. So basically you can just trade with each other normally, but even if your buddy is offline, you can use this item called resonance and still trade with him if you've played enough before. Now, my last take here is maybe a little bit controversial, because everybody who's played trade ever knows that the people at the top will have crazy items, but I do seriously think with all of these multipliers, there will be, if you take a min-maxed trade player versus a min-maxed SSF player, both people played like 2 weeks on the same character and just grinded and grinded, I think you will see 1 to 2 items on the self-found character that is absolutely going to outshine the ones on trade, because there will be items that just do not exist on trade. They're just not possible with that sort of variance that you will get. We're talking about double to triple tier 7 items. And while yes, I'm sure you will be able to get those 3-4 LP items even on trade if you have enough gold. It's going to be gold cap or whatever on those unique items. You have to remember that the exalted items in self-found will be completely outrageous, and the difference between slamming like a 3 tier 7 item on a 3 LP unique and having like an okay exalted is a completely different world. But to put this into perspective, I made this real quickly. If we have character power here and on the horizontal we have the time, I think that trade, obviously early is going to be the same, or it should be the same if my drawing was better. Early will be the same because you don't have your faction yet. Once you get your faction, I think trade will go up in power immensely, especially if you don't spend gold early on like Rune of Shatterings or something like that, and you just buy the uniques that you want. You're gonna be scaling quite quickly, whereas in self-found, at the start, you don't really have anything. You can't just trade at all. You can't just do anything. You don't even get extra power. Slowly but surely, you will get all those multipliers to your loot, and you will ramp up to a certain point. But as you will see right here, in mid-game, trade is going to overtake self-found by quite a bit. However, once we get into end-game right here, the curve will get crazier and crazier. Meanwhile, end-game will flat out quite a bit, because once people are in endgame, those items will be fought after vividly, and unless there's like a gold cap or people are gonna snipe it with bots. We know how people are in RPGs. They're very competitive when it comes to trade. Meanwhile, in self-found, now all of a sudden you're gonna be rank 9, rank 10, and all of a sudden you're gonna stack prophecies. You're gonna drop like, I don't know, 200 unique staffs from an enemy to like look for that 3 LP staff that you need. I think it's going to be completely outrageous. And like I said, I don't even know where the max is here on self-found. Like I said, this might be a hot take. I think on self-found, you will see some items that you will never see on trade. Some absolute freakish items. But okay, all of this is complete speculation. This is just how I think it will pan out. It's fun to talk about these kind of things. But why do I personally choose self-found? I guess the first reason is I just want to experience it, because I'm usually not a self-found player in PoE. I really like the trading system, and there's no reason for me to just penalize myself for no reason, at least in my opinion. But in this game, you actually get more loot, and I love loot drops. Guess what? I like more loot on the ground. Pretty damn cool. But there's 3 big reasons. The first one is I don't think the auction house will work perfectly. Remember, the auction house comes out with 1.0. It hasn't really been tested all that much. I'm sure it has been tested behind the scenes, but still, there might be glitches, there might be abuse cases, especially when it comes to gold. And we've seen this in a lot of economy-based games. Once there is a gold abuse, I mean, the economy just kind of goes to shit. And the last and probably biggest reason why I want to play it is I don't mind pivoting builds. I don't mind finding something and all of a sudden building around it. I'll give you an example right here. I found this one the other day, the Vortex Pendant, which isn't really that strong on its own, but it has 4 legendary potential. So the world is my oyster. Depending on how good my exalted item is that I slam on, I get all the mods. And maybe I can do something with it, and all of a sudden that off-meta build will be completely cracked. It's obviously not the best example, but let's say, for example, Chronicle of the Damned, let's say this was 4 LP, all of a sudden I can do some Wandering Spirits, Hungering Souls memes. I think that is just really fun. And like I said, these kind of drops are just going to happen way more on self-found, and you're not even going to seek them out on trade. Everything you drop is just going to be a vessel for gold for selling. But yeah, with that being said, I don't want to necessarily sell you on self-found. I think trade is going to be absolutely busted, especially in mid-game and early, but I think once we get to a certain point, self-found can actually get super juicy, and you're going to find so many more freakish items. Hope you enjoyed the video. Obviously, once again, I can only speculate like everybody else. Maybe we can start a little bit of discussion. If you have a good point down in the comments, I will definitely highlight it. And yeah, thank you for watching, and since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.